My name's Anton Pavlenko. I guess I would identify an oil painter and specifically a landscape painter. I live in Portland, Oregon, and I've lived in the Pacific Northwest for about 35 years. Often that'll just depend on the day. When I'm painting outdoors, I sometimes don't know whether I'm going to go like left or right or north or south in my car until I'm behind the wheel and headed there. So a lot of it's kind of determined by like a gut or intuitive feeling. I don't usually seek out or premeditate compositions or paintings I like. I'll just kind of go with the flow and see what I find along the way. I think for as long as I remember, I was always an artsy kid. You know, everyone kind of like tries on a hat and one that they're really comfortable with as children. And for me, art and doodling and drawing felt like it came naturally. And I developed a deeper interest in it. My parents were really supportive of it. And so I started experimenting with different types of mediums, including oil painting as a teenager. I mostly just taught myself by doing master copies, copying artwork, either like in art history books or things that I'd find in magazines or something that I really liked. And so there were certain artists that I gravitated towards, some of like the early Soviet era artists, but also later a lot of like the American California Impressionists. Yeah, I just never went to art school, and I never considered art as a career until my 20s, my late 20s. And by then I felt like it's probably too late to go to art school, and I already know how to paint, might as well just take a stab at it. Style is a difficult one. I think since I've never had a formal training or an education or even studied under another artist, I kind of lacked this like a directing hand in my artistic developments. With that came this kind of lack of style, because sometimes I would see other artists or some of my friends who have studied under other artists, you can kind of see like the imprint. And to me, I had to just try everything until I figured it out. And one piece of advice that I remember somebody giving me, I don't remember who it was, but they said style is like the timbre of your voice. It's not something you can control. Like you can learn to sing or speak different ways. It's just something that you shouldn't try to attain or develop. Like develop your sense of color or perspective or drawing. All of those things you can work on, but style is just something that's going to come naturally to you. And so at some point I kind of stopped trying to develop or stopped trying to obsess about style and just focus on other developments in my career. Yeah, I vividly remember us immigrating as a family. As an adult, I look back a lot and realized that immigrating at that age was pretty pivotal for me. I've never moved before then, and I only had kind of fond memories of home or my grandparents' house. And then comes this big move, which came pretty suddenly. You can't really prepare children for, and it was just living in refugee camps and train stations and airplanes and different languages that everyone was speaking. And I don't know how it really affected me, other than that it made a really large impression on how vast and large and different the world is at that age. And I think it maybe sparked an interest in exploring and traveling myself, because I will find often that certain like smells or sights trigger these nostalgic memories from immigration. I often think that like it's probably sent me on this search for home, because I really felt uprooted and not really feeling like having a sense of home as a child. And realizing that you're an immigrant here, and the life that you live at home and the language you speak with your parents and the food you eat is a lot different than the one that you portray or try to actively involve yourself in at school or with your peers. You feel like, I don't know, like a middle child in many sense, culturally. It was really kind of hard to fit in. And I think in many ways my art is a kind of an expression or a grasp or an attempt at doing that. I really like painting the landscape. I often wondered like why I even like painting the landscape, and it's a sense of being in a place that I really enjoy. And if I can be taken there, even if it's a place that's fictional, I think it just kind of tickles that or scratches that itch that I have to search for home and search for a permanent place. No, I haven't been back to Ukraine. There have been times later as an adult I've had these nostalgic feelings of going back, and then the conflict with Russia kind of broke out, and that kind of dampened things and my interest in going. I feel like there'd be probably so little of what that I'd recognize of my hometown. I was born in Zaporozhye and grew up in Kharkiv, which I think had a fair amount of conflict over the last few years. I don't know, I think that would be, maybe it'd be good for me to go back. I feel like that might also be really difficult and traumatic. Yes, very much. I went to college for a few years and I really was interested in philosophy and psychology. And I think I realized that it's because, again, like those were studies that helped me understand my own self. And I like that when I have like a little discovery. But I think that the largest discoveries of my own self that I've made were through my art. And it's noticing how much of a connection my brush and maybe my mind and my heart have. And it could be something trivial, like I just had a bad day or an argument or I didn't sleep well, and I'll immediately see that in my work. And there are times where I show up to the studio, either they're distracted or just not mentally or emotionally capable of working well. But I know enough that it's not going to result in a painting that I like. I had a moment, actually it was with that painting, done many years ago, and it's not a particularly good painting, it's very gloomy, but I remember just stumbling some trees in and they just weren't right or something, and I remember I started to hit the canvas, just beating it, just like kind of stab it with my brush, and I immediately feel like this release of some hormones or something, and I'm like, I could feel like my heartbeat in my chest, and then I'm looking at the marks on the canvas, and I immediately felt like those marks that I made in that like anger were a direct reflection of how I was feeling at the moment. And I've never just seen it as clearly as I did with that painting.